Hi, I'm Jill Scharr from the New York City Videogame Critics Circle, and the Sony PlayStation 4 event is about to start in about 5 minutes. So I'm here with Goldberg, the Circle's founder. What do you think of the event so far?
Well, I think it was cold outside, but the main thing that's really interesting to me is that PlayStation is coming up to about a 20-year anniversary, so we'll see how good this new PlayStation 4 will be. We'll see right after the event.
Yep, starting now. Hi, I'm Jill Scharr from the New York City Videogame Critics Circle, and with me is Siegel from Newsarama. We're at the PlayStation 4 after the announcements. Can you give us your first impressions on what you saw?
It's incredible. The graphics that we saw in some of these games really genuinely looked like you were playing cutscenes from PlayStation 3 in real time, which is phenomenal. That's exactly what you want out of it. But I like that the graphics weren't really the focus. All the developers that took the stage, Capcom, Bungie, they each came out and talked about how the PlayStation 4 itself and its new social networking features, its community ideas, are what they're focusing on to make this into a new experience.
With the exception of Square Enix, they didn't.
With the exception of Square Enix, who came out with a tech demo, as usual. And then their nice little, yeah, we're making a Final Fantasy game for the PlayStation 4. We'll tell you about it in a few months.
They announced their announcement, which is great.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting way of doing things, I suppose. But you know, when the producer of Final Fantasy Versus 13 came out on stage, I thought maybe they were going to actually announce that game was coming out.
Great. So, what are you most excited for on the PS4?
The new user interface, the new social features really look like they're going to transform the way that you play games, especially with people remotely. We all have friends that have moved across the country, or we moved across the country, and playing a match with them on Xbox Live with your headset is nice. But these new features, being able to actually kind of peer over their shoulders and share a virtual couch, do look really, really cool. I like that the DualShock 4 is fundamentally the same controller with a few new bells and whistles. At this point, a lot of us have been using DualShock controllers for almost 20 years, and it's nice to be able to have that familiarity.
What about that announcement that they're trying to reincorporate the PS Vita into the PlayStation 4?
That's great. I love my Vita. I know it's not exactly taken off the way that people, including Sony, wish that it had. The idea that you will be able to play all of your PS4 games on your Vita with remote play is outstanding. It literally makes the Vita into a completely different device. And I truly believe will absolutely make the Vita into an essential part of your PlayStation experience.
Kind of like the Wii U. They did something similar. They're doing something with Wii U.
Yes, except being able to actually take it on the go and actually use it, using remote play while you're sitting in a cafe in San Francisco waiting for a business meeting.
Right. That's the big point.
Instead of just, across the room.
Yeah. So anything you were hoping to see or expecting to see that you didn't see?
Well, yeah, I would have liked to see a Final Fantasy game actually announced. That's become such a staple for Sony and for the PlayStation brand. The PlayStation brand just feels empty to me without Final Fantasy. It's why I bought the first PlayStation. I bought one explicitly just to play Final Fantasy VII, and then those were the games that made me fall in love with this brand. So that was the biggest missing part. I know they tried to kind of take care of it, but that was the biggest missing part. And I would have liked to see the console. I guess the final designs for the actual device itself aren't there, which is fine. I'm sure we'll see that at E3 in June. and it just would have been nice to see.
Thank you. This is Lucas Siegel from Newsarama. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Great. So we're here with Ben Silverman from Yahoo Games. Ben, can you give us your impressions on the PS4 demo?
Well, I thought it was pretty impressive. I mean, we didn't really know what to expect. We've heard a lot of rumors, we've heard a lot of speculation, and I think what Sony did was pretty smart. They came out and showed a lot of software-oriented products here. We saw obviously a lot of games, a lot of first-party and third-party games. They came out pretty strong with that material. But I think everybody's a little disappointed we didn't get to see more hardware, actually see what this thing looks like. You know, they showed us that controller for a minute. There's a lot of functionality in that controller they didn't really explain. So I think those are the questions that are going to be on everyone's minds, you know, in the coming months. But that being said, as a coming out party, I thought it was pretty cool.
What did you think of? We've been asking about the announcement that the PS Vita is being reincorporated into the PlayStation 4 whole schematic. What do you think about that?
Well, they have to come up with something to do with the PlayStation Vita, because...
Do you use a Vita at all?
You know, no. I mean, sometimes. It's sitting somewhere, I think. There's some good games for it, but obviously the system didn't take off as Sony had hoped, and I think what they're deciding to do with it now makes a lot of sense. You know, second screen gaming is what everybody's doing these days, and hopefully this will breathe some life into the Vita and give people a reason to use it. I think it might be a little too too late at this point. Like, people have made their decisions on the Vita, and it's kind of hard to revitalize that or revive that. That being said, they obviously had to do something with it, and I think this does make sense.
So what most caught your eye? What are you most excited for in the coming games, or just features, hardware? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I think some of the stuff they showed off here looked pretty cool. I've been a big fan of Jonathan Blows, as I think most people have for a long time. That was a really pleasant surprise and a real shocker that The Witness is coming to the PS4. I thought that's a bizarre match, and I'm really into that. It looks really whimsical and very cool. And then obviously some of the big titles like Watch Dogs, which we had seen last year at E3. It's great seeing that, you know, it really is coming to a next-gen system. That gameplay demo that we saw looked really awesome. It looked like kind of almost like a Batman superhero game. I wasn't expecting.
That's what I said. I said poor man's Batman.
All right, same wavelength, right? So I mean, I think was sort of a shocker, because it looks sort of like an espionage game. Now all of a sudden he's got like power over this city. He's stopping trains and he's, you know, halting, you know, cars and stuff. That looked really cool. And then let me think. The other one, obviously Destiny. I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by revealing that game last week, and so the information about that game was sort of already out there, so the impact wasn't quite there. But I'm really intrigued. It's Bungie and Sony. That's never heard those two words put together, so very exciting, I think, for gamers. I mean, there were a lot of really good, interesting pieces. I think probably the thing I was least enthused about was Killzone was the first thing they led with. You know, well, other than Knack, which looked neat as well and kind of whimsical, and I do like Mark Cerny, but Killzone to me kind of felt like, oh, it's another first-person shooter. I was hoping to see something a little more dramatic there.
I mean, that's why I started with it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you're touching on any disappointments, anything you wished you had seen, wish you had heard more about, anything you're still curious about with the PS4?
Well, yeah, The Last Guardian. I mean, come on, where's The Last Guardian?
Right, thank you.
First question on everyone's mind.
Yep.
Right when this thing ended, that's all I wanted to ask somebody. Where it's been so long, you've got the chance, you've got a new system, let's get this game out. It's been on my anticipated list for, I think, 15 years now. And of course, still no Last Guardians. That's a disappointment. And then also, it's just not seeing the hardware, not getting a price, but obviously it's early. I think really getting a look at the hardware and seeing what it looks like and seeing the evolution of that, to me, is the next step. And also, I got to say, you know, I'm a little unsure of how all this social integration stuff is going to work. I'm the kind of gamer, I'm an older gamer. I like to play games alone. I don't like to feel weird that I like to play games alone. And this is still pushing that, like, you got to play with friends, you got to share everything, you got to pass videos back and forth. That's not really my thing, so the fact that they're pushing it so hard in that direction, I understand why they're doing it. That's sort of the way of the world. Everyone's on a million different systems. But for me, it doesn't speak that much to me. I am looking for a big graphical leap. I was really excited by some of those tech demos. Looked really cool. The facial stuff that they were doing, David Cage's work, very compelling. And that's, I think, the stuff that really spoke most to me, not all the social stuff.
Great, thanks so much. This is Ben Silverman from Yahoo Games. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Right on. Okay, we're here with Harold Goldberg, the founder of the New York City Video Game Critics Circle. Harold, can you tell us about your first impressions for the PS4?
Yeah, coming in, I had no idea what to expect at all. I kind of felt, well, do we really need new PlayStation with an incremental bump in graphics? And then when Herman Hulst came out to show us Killzone, I said, yeah, I need that bump in graphics. It just the vista he showed just looked so fantastic, and you know what science fiction really should be. I just kind of wanted, at that moment anyway, to live in that world. I mean, that doesn't, we haven't played the game yet. We're just teased a bit of it, but what I saw there was quite compelling. And, even the kids' games, like Mark Cerny's game, looked really quite interesting, and the Media Molecule people coming out with this kind of three-dimensional move play that almost looked holographic to me. That was really interesting. Watch Dogs was a little more awesome than I thought last year, and that was awesome. So yeah, I was fairly impressed. We did not get to see the box itself, so I guess they're going to show that at E3. But I think just the pace of the presentation was quite good. I didn't get bored, and over 2 hours I usually do.
Great. Was there anything that we were sort of expecting, games journalists were expecting that we got wrong? I mean, what were there any surprises or gaps in the presentation?
Well, I saw some rumor mongers say that the controller would have kind of an iPad-like touch screen on it, and I'm glad that didn't happen. I thought that would be kind of imitation of imitations, since we have the iPad and the Wii U. I'm glad Sony did not go that route.
Anything you were hoping to see that you didn't see?
What I was really hoping to see, since we're here in New York, I was hoping that Rockstar Games would make an appearance in some way. I mean, I don't think that GTA 5 is for PlayStation 4, but if it were, or the next Red Dead, perhaps they could come out and say that's going to be on PlayStation 4. But they do like to be in their own. They do kind of like to be alone at Rockstar and do go their own way. So I understand why they weren't here. But yeah, I was kind of hoping to see that. And I really can't think of anything else that I'm missing here, except for The Last Guardian. I thought, man, we got to see that Last Guardian. I was just jonesing to see that. And that's the kind of game that everyone will flock to. It's not just for kids, and it's not just for adults. I think everyone will want to play that game. So maybe we'll see that at E3.
So it's only been a couple minutes since the presentation ended. You talked to a couple of games journalists, though, and we were all in the room. Can you talk about how journalists are gonna or are already responding to the announcements? What the energy in the room was like tonight?
I think the energy was. That people were very excited about it, and the way the stage was set up with this kind of surround video monitor was really quite stirring. It made me want to have that kind of thing in my home. Obviously that'll never happen, it's too big, but we really kind of felt what might be, and I stress might be a resurgence of Sony and PlayStation. I read PlayStation and PlayStation 2, they had about 80% of the market, and they don't have that now. In fact, I just read a stat that said Sony has 11%, or of all of Sony in the world, 11% is devoted to games. But this may change if people gravitate toward this kind of social, highly graphically intense phenomenon that they're touting here today.
Great. Thank you very much. This is Harold Goldberg again, the founder of the New York City Videogame Critics Circle. Thanks, Harold.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, now we're here with Ben Gilbert from Engadget. Ben, can you talk about your impressions from the PS4 event?
Oh man, there's no box, and I'm a hardware guy, so it's kind of hard for me to be here and not see a box. I understand why they're doing it, but it's kind of like they're doing the PS4 reveal in reverse. Like in the past, we usually see the box, and they talk about specs and how powerful it's going to be and how many teraflops it's going to push out and all this other stuff, and then we see the games at E3. So this seems like kind of the reverse, and that's an interesting approach, right? Like this whole presentation was all totally game focused. It was not hardware focused. It wasn't. The entire approach seemed really platform agnostic almost, right? Like the console streams to all these other things. You can play it on your Vita, you can play it on your smartphone, you can play games on your tablet and whatever. And so it seems like they're really taking this is a PlayStation 4, but it's really not about that. It's really about the content on your PlayStation 4, and that's great to see. Like it's actually what people who play games care about is games. So yeah.
So how does this change the way we're going to report about it now? For as you as games journalists or in the community, is this change the way we're going to talk about the PS4 or games in general from now on?
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't think it was a sea change in terms of the kind of stuff that's being offered on the console. It's more powerful. It has a few more bells and whistles, but it's essentially a more powerful PlayStation 3, right? Like it's an evolutionary step, not a revolutionary change. So is it going to change how we write about them or speak about them? I mean, it's really up to game creators to make experiences that will change the way we speak about games. Like David Cage speaking to the emotional impact and things you can do on PlayStation 4. Maybe that will change things, but it's really up to the game developers to make games that draw on emotions rather than, I don't know, say a fourth Killzone game.
Right. So aside from the box itself, anything else you were hoping to see or expecting to see that you didn't get to see tonight?
I would have really liked to see a Vita price drop. And that is something that I think is the inevitability. They already announced one in Japan, so it seems like that has to happen here. I'm kind of shocked that they didn't do that. They talked a lot about the Vita connectivity, and they talked about, they didn't talk about Vita otherwise at all, and this is the future of PlayStation event, and I get that it's about PlayStation 4, but the Vita seems like kind of left out, and that was really a surprise. It could really use a price drop because it's a good console.
So you're a Vita fan. We've had mixed talk about the Vita from now on tonight.
It's a really nice piece of hardware, right? Like, it's just a question of there being content on it to play, and there's not a lot. And it's also a hard sell at $250. Like, that's not something that everybody wants to necessarily drop that much money on just to play games, right? Like, there's a 3G Vita, but I don't think many people are using the 3G connectivity on their Vitas. I have Twitter on my phone, I have Facebook on my phone, all those things. And I don't have to pay a separate data plan for my game console just to do that stuff, right? Like, it seems like kind of unnecessary. So anyway, it would just be, I would have liked to have seen more Vita stuff and a price drop, and it's a shame that we wouldn't. But
there was no talk of pricing, but was that really expected tonight?
Over the PlayStation 4?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that anybody expected a price. I can't imagine that it will be anywhere near as expensive as the PlayStation 3 was at launch. I think they learned their lesson on that. But it would be very difficult for them to make such a highly technical device, 8 gigabytes of very expensive RAM. It's got a brand new custom GPU. It's got all these other nice pieces of tech in there that will end up costing money, right? Like, that is going to be passed down to consumers, and it would have been nice to have heard the price, but I don't think we needed to either, right? Yeah, I didn't expect to, at least.
So you said it's a very content-focused night, or is there any particular games that they featured tonight that leapt out at you? Was your favorite one?
Yeah, I think I continue to be very into Watch Dogs. It seems like one of the most developed games here. It's also just something that, it looked good when they showed it when Ubisoft showed it last year at E3, before the PlayStation 4 stuff. So, that game looks very good, and it's new IP. It's from Ubisoft, who tend to make some really great stuff. So yeah, I'm very excited for Watch Dogs.
Right. Well, Ben Gilbert from Engadget, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Great. So we're here with Evan Narcisse from Kotaku. Your outlet Kotaku has been covering the supposed PS4 demo for a while now. What did you get right? What did you guys get wrong?
We got a ton right. We got the share button right, which is going to be the kind of social activator for the console that's going to let you record gameplay and share it to a bunch of different networks that you probably name inside the system. We also got some of the download and online services stuff right. We talked about the kind of buy and play at the same time for digital games. So I think we have a pretty good track record. I don't want to name everything we got right because I could be wrong and then that'll just be bad. But yeah, we'll go to Kotaku. We got a lot right. Yeah.
Anything that did surprise you?
I was really surprised not to get a glimpse of the hardware. I know they have to save some stuff for E3, but I figured we would be able to see the hardware design and maybe not hands-on, because that's the kind of thing you do save for E3. But I was surprised that they didn't show the box. In this day and age where industrial design is such a sexy and kind of alluring aspect of consumer electronics, I figured they'd want to make the thing known at this point. Yeah, so that kind of surprised me. I did like the focus on independent game creators and how they made that a big pillar of the presentation. It's been one of the best things of this last generation of the PlayStation 3. So I was glad that they gave those guys some time up here.
They showcase a lot of upcoming content for new games. Anything that particularly jumped out for you? What are you most excited for?
Well, the thing that interested me, I won't say I'm excited, but I was extremely intrigued by the Capcom engine demo for the Panta Ray. They just did a new engine for Street Fighter, the MT framework. So their last generation of games is already on software that's relatively new. So for them to be forward-looking is interesting. I don't know how much of that stuff is what we're going to wind up seeing on the actual hardware, or whether it's like a target video, like this is what we're aiming for, rather this is what's running in real time. But I thought that was the thing that looked the most next gen of the games that we were showing up there. Like lots of stuff like looked good, like lots of detail and particulate animations and stuff like that. But a lot of it did still look like stuff we could still see on the PS3. So I thought that was interesting. One other interesting point was they made a big point of describing the system architecture, which they generally don't do in these kind of forums. But PlayStation machines have had a rep of being really hard to develop on and program for. So I think they were saying, look, this is like a PC. This is like what you already build the games on. We're going to make it easier for you. And there was a lot of talk about the ease of use from a bunch of different developers. So I think that's an important kind of feature for them to be talking up. It doesn't necessarily trickle down to the consumer, but in a way it does, because if it affects the way the games are made, then you might get more and better games made on this platform. So, yeah.
So what are some talking points or key points, I guess, from this demo that you as a journalist want to communicate to your readers, first and foremost?
I think everybody should be mindful of the fact that it's coming this year, which is, pretty soon. I don't remember what the gap was between the PS3 announcement and actual availability, but I'm pretty sure it was more than a year. So that was really interesting to me. Sony is definitely planting their flag in the ground, saying you want to be planning for this. Also I think we at Kotaku, we always want to maintain a healthy level of skepticism to the claims that are being made. They're promising a bright, shiny future, and not all of it is going to come to pass. And the sooner we can figure that stuff out, what's likely and what's not, the better a decision our readers can make about whether they want to jump on board or not. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks very much. This is Evan Narcisse from Kotaku. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.